Hello, 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 everybody. This is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you on a Wednesday evening about 7:30. I think it's about 7:30. I hope everybody is doing well. My name is Aurelia Davis. I'm the educator's educator. I've been coming to you live for quite a few years now, and just wanted to come today in celebration of Women's History Month. The month of March is considered Women's History Month. And I first would like to honor my mother. My mother was born on March 13th, 1927, and she passed away in 2012. No, 2013, I'm sorry. But if she had lived today, if she had lived, she would be 97 years old. She would be 97 years old. So happy birthday, Rosie Lee Warren Jones. She wanted you to say it correctly. Happy birthday, Rosie Lee Warren Jones. That was my mom. She raised 5 girls, including me. So I miss her. I miss her terribly. She instilled in her girls so much wisdom and so much thought and honor as far as being African American women. And she did us good. In other words, and I hope and I think before she left here, she was very, very proud of us. Very, very proud of us. So being that said, let me show you a picture of my mama. This is my mother. Oh, this the glare. There it is right there. If you can see it, it's a picture of my mother. That's Rosie Lee Jones. It sort of has a glare on it, but that's her. That's her. And recently, what I did do is I went back into the picture archives and I recovered a picture of my mother's mother or my grandmother. She passed away long before we were even thought about. I think my mom was the oldest of her children, of the children, and so I think my mother was maybe about 10 or 11. And so her being the oldest, she was over her brothers and sisters, over her brothers and sisters. She still have 2 sisters that are living. My aunt, one of my aunts, my mother's sister, is 95, and then her baby sister is 89. So longevity runs into the family. But we're just glad that um, I'm glad she was my mother. I'm glad and I cherish her that she was my mother. But looking into Women's History Month, it's you go back to thinking about women that led the way in STEM. I'll say that again. You think about women that led the way in STEM. And if I'm thinking about any particular women, I think about the movie Hidden Figures that featured Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, and of course, Katherine Johnson. And these were African American women who were mathematicians, and they called them human computers back in the day when they were working for NASA. They had the skills of brilliant being brilliant mathematicians. I mean, doing the numbers that I couldn't even think about, but they did the numbers and they were very instrumental in getting a lot of the launches to the moon and so on and so forth. If you they have the opportunity to look at the movie, look at the movie. It's very, very telling about these particular women. And back in the day, even when African Americans were still not considered to be honored, but these particular women were honored. And under Barack Obama, he did honor Katherine Johnson. He did honor Katherine Johnson. But at the same time, some of the reading I was doing, because I've attended a couple of STEM events in the last 2 days. The first one was over at College of DuPage, and we met 2 young ladies that were on the panel. One young lady was a astrophysicist, and the other young lady, who was African American, she worked for Walt Disney World. And she was behind the scenes as far as getting, she's an engineer. She is an engineer, I'm sorry. And she was behind the scenes in a lot of the animation that takes place at Walt Disney World. And so their discussion was how still somewhat is difficult for girls to get into STEM. for young girls to get into STEM. I feel that some of our girls are afraid of STEM. They are afraid of the science. They're afraid of the technology. They're afraid of the engineering, and they are afraid of the math. And that's because it has not been introduced to them. It hasn't been introduced to the point where it has been kept simple enough for them to even know that that's what they're doing, that they're doing science, that they're doing technology, that they're doing engineering, and that they're doing math. So that has to be something that has to be instilled in our children. And in that particular session on Monday night, I raised the question, at what age should STEM be introduced to children? And our young lady that works for Walt Disney World, she stated that kindergarten should be the age. And that brings us all the way back to what I have been talking about as far as STEM and bringing the STEM cards for preschool, because I also believe that a child is never too young to learn something. That's what I'm saying, getting ready to say. A child is never too young to learn math, uh, science, technology, and engineering. Of course, it has to be brought down to the level where they understand it. And, of course, then you're not going to give them a fifth grade lesson, but you're going to break those lessons down to the point where they are looking at things that they can recognize. And of course, they can recognize numbers. 4 and 5 year olds can start recognizing numbers. They can start putting letters together to spell words. And if they see a certain amount of time, then they will even know what the word is. And as far as math is concerned, and then of course, children are building with Legos and everything. And at one time, I believe that, because I taught preschool, and we would have the homemaker section, the building block section, and the different parts in our particular classroom. And at one time, I do believe, I hope I'm not misquoting, but they were basically saying that they did not want the boys to play in the house section and the girls not to play in the block section. So the boys basically were geared toward the blocks, and the girls were basically geared toward housemaking or housekeeping. Housekeeping, let's call it housekeeping, with the stove and the refrigerator. Well, that has all changed. That has all changed, and it should never have been at that time, but that's what we were told. We're talking about the 80s and whatever. And so they pushed girls to be more of homemakers or nurses or teachers, and they pushed boys to be more into building blocks and things like that. And all the time, girls could end up doing those things too, because I believe as I started teaching more, and I was working in a kindergarten classroom one time, and of course they had the different sections then, also the block section. And I told the teacher at the time, I said, are the children, I think it was subbing, I said, are the children allowed to go to whatever they want, wherever they want to go to play? And she said, yes, they are. And when I looked up, there were so many girls building blocks, using the blocks and building structures. And this was a start also for children, for girls not to be pigeonholed into one particular career. Now, some of the research I've been doing lately, they're saying that girls are still somewhat afraid of these skills, afraid of those subjects, math, engineering, technology, even though technology is something that all of our children are doing anyway at as early as age 1. They are working in technology because they have the cell phones. They know how to put their fingers on a particular app and get something to come up. So they're working technology anyway, and that's still part of STEM. Our girls are starting to, some of our girls are very good mathematicians also. They're very good mathematicians, but they have to be encouraged more to be a part of the math project and whatever programs. And you have to encourage them and not let them shy away from it. I remember students coming up to me. In fact, I remember some of my girl students were good mathematicians. They were very good with math. They were very, very good and they loved it, and they loved math. But I remember some of the young ladies coming up to me when I was first starting to teach, and math was still a bad word in the classroom as far as girls were concerned. And they would come up, Miss Davis, I don't know how to do this and whatever. So what I would do is I would pull together a group of girls that had some of them that was able to solve the particular math problem, and some of them that were still having issues with the math problem. And I would sit them down in a group, and I would say, okay, you know what? Lillian, I want you to teach Sally how to do this math problem. How you came up with the right answer. So teach her how. So it just tells you that children working in groups on different projects in STEM helps them to become more comfortable with STEM. So if you start building those STEM groups in your classroom, the scientists, the individuals that are into technology, those students that want to be engineers, and they love building things, they love creating and building things. And then of course you want the ones that are mathematicians, and you'll be surprised how they even intertwine a lot in what they're doing. So it started before you know it. As you put these groups together, you're going to be work STEM is going to be in your classroom. It's going to be in your classroom, and all you have to do is just facilitate it and manage it. Because I have been in some classrooms where the children were working on STEM and talking about, oh my God, they started working on it and then you couldn't get them away from it. They didn't even want to stop for lunch. So I said that to say this, that even though the subjects themselves have a tendency of frightening children away, we cannot, we as educators have to keep introducing it so that it does not become a frightening subject, so that it does not become a frightening subject, but we find that our children want to be a part of it. I even remember one time where well, my children were always sitting in groups anyway. And the word STEM was not necessarily around at the time, but I gave each of my groups a puzzle, something to work with, math puzzles. It was a little bit of everything, but I do remember having some Legos back in the day, having those Legos, and they had those little red blocks, where you had to build, where you learn how to build a house. They were little the whatchamajig logs. If you're old, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I put that on there, and one group in my classroom, they put together this fantastic house that I almost want to live in it myself. So that just shows the skills that are already in place. The skills are already in place if you introduce the project or the whatever is needed in order to bring the skill out of the particular child, bring the skill out of the child. So as we are going into STEM heavily going into STEM, because it's being spoken on a daily basis now. Colleges are bringing it up. They are training teachers on how to teach it in the classroom. And as long as we are at the point where it's a common language, then our children won't be afraid of it. I'll say that again. As long as our children hear it on a daily basis, science, technology, engineering, and math, you almost can make it into a rap: science, technology, engineering, and math. Do what you have to do, but get it in the heads of our children. And the younger they are, when they hear it, the better off. They'll start believing it and they'll start working it. And so by the time they're in 5th or 6th grade, they know exactly what they want to do. I want to be a scientist. I want to work in technology. I want to do coding. I want to be an engineer. I want to build bridges. Or I want to be a mathematician like Katherine Johnson in Hidden Figures. So these are the things that we have to do, continue to do as educators, So, oh my goodness, I was looking at something. I'm sorry. So visit my website. Learn how I can work with you about this particular subject or any other subject. I was approached at one time about a teacher needing some help with the classroom management. That is my love, classroom management, because until I accomplished classroom management, I could not teach. So that is my love, classroom management. On the website, you'll see how you can purchase my STEM cards. Let me see if I got the box. You can purchase my STEM cards, and then I have T-shirts on there. So a little bit of everything. And visit my website, Aurelia Davis, www.aureliadavis.com, and just see all of my offerings. And can't wait to see you again. Take care and have a good evening. Bye-bye.